What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Full Blast. I am your host, Raja Burrows. It's good to be back. I took a pretty long break, certainly by my standards. I was out of town for a bit, and then I quit Facebook. We're going to get into all of that. I do want to give you guys a little bit of a catch up on me and my life because it does relate to what we're going to be talking about today, which is the language of OP and when it's useful and when it's maybe not so useful. Before we get into that, please be sure to like and subscribe. Of course, feel free to share this far and wide. Please share it in the Facebook group. The only reason that I'm not part of the group anymore is because I got rid of Facebook entirely, and I can't be in the Facebook group if I don't have a Facebook account. But I do still feel very connected to the community, to objective personality, to Jungian typology community in general. What do I say? Like, subscribe, share, hit the bell icon if you want notifications when new videos go live. It's pretty sporadic. This channel, at least this section of this channel, not very predictable. So hit that bell icon if you want a little surprise every now and then in your inbox. Okay. So why do I want to talk about the language of OP, and how does this relate to my departure from Facebook? Now, I want to be very specific that I just left Facebook. I did not leave Instagram. I have never really been on Twitter. I had a Twitter account when Trump was president because I needed to verify what was a real tweet and what was a joke tweet. So this is not like all social media is not something I want to do. I mean, I'm on YouTube. I'm literally making a YouTube video as we speak. By definition, I am on social media right now. But for Facebook in particular, I found that its utility, it had like 4% utility and 96% drawback for me relative to where I am now, where I'm trying to go, and what I'm trying to accomplish, both in the short term and the long term. And I was like, okay, well, if there's that much of a despair, I am totally fine with nothing is perfect. 100%, fully on board, 80-20, whatever ratio percentage you want to say. But I was like, Facebook, it isn't even 50-50. It's like very, very little of it was nourishing and inspiring and felt like it was making me a better person. And then 96% of it was just like, it felt like I was either doing it out of obligation or I just didn't, I couldn't leave. It was weird. I was like, no. This is not how we do things. Stop. Pause. Get rid of it. She gotta go. And I'm going to be honest, so I've now been off of Facebook for 12 days, because it's June 12th and I left on June 1st. It's really hard to overstate what incredible positive things it has done for my brain. It's not close. It's not close. Because here's the thing. I have a lot of baggage with Facebook. I've been on there I was on there in 2004. I was one of the first 2.5 million users. That's million with an M users. At the time of my departure, I was one of the, I want to say that I was in the top 0.08% of users in terms of when I joined. So, like, you want to talk about OG Facebook user. And, you know, I had a lot of really happy memories, really productive memories, really interesting memories and associations with the platform, with my time on the platform, with the conversations that platform enabled, with the people that allowed me to meet and connect with, and all of these. Like, I had such a history of positivity, and it was really difficult to reconcile the ways in which Facebook used to serve me versus how it was serving me in the last couple of months. And I bring that up specifically in the context of OP, because whether you're on the Facebook group or not, whether you're on the YouTube community, whether you're part of the class, whatever, there's a lot more baked into the language of objective personality, how we talk about objective personality, how the OP community talks about typology and personal growth, that I think is really, really important to understand. Because there are phrases, ways of using language when we talk about OP and personal growth that might be extraordinarily helpful to you and useful to you and inspiring and make you feel alive and creative and all of these wonderful things. There might be some language that does not. There might be examples of language and thought processes and thought patterns that used to really serve you and now no longer do. So here's what I mean, just for that last example there, right? So there's a lot of shorthand in OP, right? Whether it's skib and mope and crackhead and douchebag. Right, those are like the four. Skib is consume play. Mope is consume sleep. Crackhead is blast play. Douchebag is blast sleep. Right? When I first got to OP, being able to recognize my crackhead tendencies, wildly useful. Oh my God. And being able to just have that extra triangulation of being able to catch myself when I was like, hang on a second, am I running myself off a cliff? Right? And then I could be like, got it. Hang on a second. I'm about to do the thing. Let me take a step back and decide if I want to keep doing the thing, if I want to pause, if I want to go a different direction, whatever, right? And, you know, I know a lot of people who are like, you know, so I have a lot of skib friends in the community. Save your consume and save your play, whether it's consume play, play consume, whatever. For them, they have found a lot of value in being able to go, hang on a second, am I skibbing right now? Am I skibbing? Is this a thing where I'm just going from thing to thing to thing to thing and not taking the time to organize? As a shorthand, oh my God, is that useful? I totally get it. Here's the thing. When you are in the personal growth community, regardless of flavor, I'm going to include the metaphysical community in this, whether it's psychic readings or tarot or astrology or I Ching, right? Whatever it is, whether it's Jungian typology, whether it's Enneagram, whether it's augmented personality, whether it's whatever section of the personal growth world that you are in at the moment, let's just say, you're gonna grow through it. Maybe you'll end up growing out of it. Maybe I don't know. With OP, it's a little weird because OP itself has only very recently started to codify and solidify. So it's not like if I'm, doing astrology, if I'm getting into astrology is more or less like the rules are pretty known and fairly finite, over, millennia of this system existing. So like, I'm not going to change any fundamentals of astrology by my participating in it. That's just not a thing that's going to happen. But like if you were in the personal growth sector, if you care about personal growth, by definition, you are always going to keep growing, right? And, listen, there are some shirts and pants that I wore in college that were banging when I was in college. But then my body changed and I lost weight. And Abercrombie and Fitch didn't have the same vibe, now as it did in 2006. Right? That's not a failing of Raja circa 2006. That's not a failing of Abercrombie and Fitch. That doesn't mean I shouldn't have bought that shirt then. It just means that I need to take a look at that shirt and go, does this still work for me? And I bring this up in the context of the language of OP because there's so much of it. And one of the big things that I realized being away from the Facebook group and just sort of like, again, so I took a break from the community, you could say, for, I think it was like 3 weeks or something, 3 or 4 weeks. And I was like, I just want to see what my brain does and where my brain naturally, effortlessly, organically goes when I'm not feeding it with signals of OP. And it's been really, really interesting to see what has stuck and what hasn't. So, for instance, all of the shorthand I have thrown out because I don't find it useful. If you find it useful, by all means, hold on to it. I ain't gonna stop you. Also, I can't because you're an autonomous human. That's not how brains work. But more fundamentally, not only do I not find those terms very useful, I don't find the premise upon which those terms are founded to be very useful. Because I think that baked into a lot of the language of OP is a feeling of, you know what it comes down to? It comes down to the belief that change is hard and scary. And especially in these past 12 days, but really in the past, I'm going to say month and a half, that just isn't something that I believe anymore. That isn't how I want to move through the world. And certainly in the past, 2 to 4 weeks, that hasn't been how I have been moving through the world. And my life is so much better for it. Right? And it's not that I'm like perfectly Zen master whatever who's like, yes, I live a life of non-attachment and I am present in the moment, and then when the cherry blossom leaves fall away, then I let them go and the Zen and the I'm not there yet. Don't get it twisted. But as far as my approach to things, it's so much more rewarding for me to not see change as being scary or difficult. Because there are lots of things in the world that are actually dangerous and for which a fear response is incredibly useful. But when it's not useful, why am I imposing this idea of like, nobody wants to change their behaviors, but you know what? You gotta. I was like, wait, why? There's so much emotional energy that we're, whether consciously or unconsciously, loading onto this process of growing through life and being a human and, becoming more wise and generous and compassionate and connected to the earth and the people around us, right? None of that is or needs to have any component of fear to it. And I find that with a lot of language in OP, it's very easy to subconsciously bring a lot of baggage to the process that just don't need to be there. Now listen, we all have baggage that we're working through. That's why we're in the personal growth community. And, as I move on to this next phase of my life, being Facebookless, and, listen, being an admin in the Facebook group was a huge part of my mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual development. It was incredibly rewarding. I felt very connected to many, many of you. And, that's going to be something that for the next 6 months, next year, next couple of years, I'm going to be working through the baggage that I have from that. And then 10 years down the road, I'm going to be working through the baggage from right now. And that's just how this stuff works. So if you're working through baggage, if you're working through some shit, great. Deal with the shit that's in front of you. But I caution you against bringing other baggage into the equation because of the language you're choosing to use to describe what it is you're going through. And, I think that when we talk about disparaging terms, that seems to be like a pretty easy one. That's a pretty like, okay, well, sure, if you call yourself an asshole enough, then you're just giving yourself extra nonsense to work through instead of just dealing with the problem at hand. Okay, great. And that I've spoken pretty openly about like not wanting to pathologize OP and being like, oh, well, he's classic lead NI move right there. I don't know. I don't find it helpful. I don't find it useful. And because it may be true, it may not be true, but why are we loading the situation with sarcastic or negative emotional energy that will almost certainly only impede our progress? if we need it as a coping mechanism, we can find different coping mechanisms. Maybe we don't need the coping mechanism, whatever, right? So for that sort of stuff, I think it's pretty clear to see the ways in which it could or could not be useful. Okay. But what about when we talk about the functions themselves? What language do we use when talking about the functions themselves that may or may not be so useful, right? Now it gets really interesting. And this is sort of what sort of catalyzed me wanting to talk about this on this video, in my first video back. Because one of the things that I have found is that since being away from OP, I have been using functions a lot less immediately to describe what's happening, what I'm feeling, what's going on. And it's been very interesting. Now, here's the thing. It's not that I will never talk about or think about my feminine NI or my masculine SE or my demon FI or demon sleep or savior play or the try, or whatever, right? It's not that I'll never do that. But what I am finding and having a lot of success with, at least so far, is going, let me use all of the tools in my arsenal first to describe the situation, right? Rather than FI, what if I said identity? What if I said, rather than saying on an FI level, I blah, blah, blah. What if instead I said, when it comes to my personal values, blah, 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 right? And the reason that I like that, and the reason that I'm having a lot of success with it right now, is twofold. One, I've been in the community for a while. I have the shorthand. I know what all of it means. So if I ever have to, if normal words, normal conversational words fail me, and I can't really pinpoint something or I can't work through something, I can always go to, okay, is this my SE not being used enough? Is this an imbalance? Like, which axis is being imbalanced? Is this a play-sleep issue? Is this a gather-organize issue? Is this the NI overdoing it? Is it my TE overdoing it? I can always go there whenever I want. That's never going to be unavailable to me. But by putting things in such binary ways, I think that it's very easy to think of ourselves in a way that is not as rich and is not as interesting and is not as compassionate to ourselves and to others. And it does not help me to see myself as a computer program. Whether I am or not, completely fucking irrelevant. But in terms of my own self-perception and what helps me move through the world with grace and compassion and wisdom and empathy and a desire to connect with the people around me and to live the fullest and most rich life that I can, using this framing of computer program doesn't help me. It's not helping me. So the onus is on me to change my language and to change my neural wiring around my self-perception so that I can live a fuller, richer, more generous, more compassionate life. And at least as far as I'm concerned, if that ain't the goal, then what are we even doing here? There's no point. There's no point to any of this, to being in the personal growth community. Like, we're not doing it for fucking internet brownie points. We're not doing it for moral high ground points. The the whole thing that, I mean, I'm genuinely trying to think of any reason to be in any sector of personal growth beyond the goal of becoming more wise and generous and compassionate and empathetic and connected to life and the people around you, and embracing all of the fullness and richness that this existence has to offer. I feel like that's just it. And anything that either neurologically, linguistically, physically, socially is impeding that, we got to really consider it. So the way that I look at talking about functions specifically is I look at that as pasta. Good pasta, right? I got this chickpea pasta that I'm really into. It's very high in protein. It's still got some carbs. It feels like pasta. It goes great with pesto. Mwah, maron. But that's how I look at the functions. Because that is totally fine to be part of my carbohydrate intake. Right? That chickpea pasta. But it's really going to do its job if I consume it throughout the day alongside Brussels sprouts, red peppers, some carrots with hummus, roasted broccoli, some onion in my egg that I do in the morning, whatever. That's when that chickpea pasta is really going to shine. If I immediately default to the chickpea pasta, I'm not getting all the nutrients that I actually need to move throughout the day. Right? And that's kind of how I look at these functions now. Is when I'm talking about functions, when I'm talking about, my FI, my NI, my, that person's FE or whatever. First off, no, I'm trying to be really, really cognizant of having no value judgment one way or the other. Just because, again, those kinds of judgments impede my ability to live the fullest, richest, wisest, most compassionate life that I can. Right? Because on both ends, I don't think it serves me. Certainly, if I'm like, ugh, that fucking FE that person has, God, her FE is so fucking annoying. Okay, well, obviously that's not helpful. But I also don't know that it's super helpful to go in the other direction. To be like, oh my God, I love her FE. I love the way that she is able to connect, or just saying like, sorry, let me try that again. If you say like, oh my God, I love her FE. I love that she has FE. Her FE brings so much light into my life. Well, now you're reducing this human who is, by all accounts, wonderful and brings light and joy into your life. Linguistically, you're reducing them down to a function. And I think it is a lot more helpful to even if you mean their FE, I think that it is vastly more useful, and certainly vastly more useful for me, to frame it as I so appreciate her ability to see everyone's values when she's working with them. And she can really see the spectrum of values and is not totally attached to one, but is really looking for the best solution that benefits everybody. That's a much richer way to describe the exact same thing. And then you're not also building the opposite muscle of like, oh my God, I love her FE. And if you come up against somebody who you see as having TE, now you're automatically playing a comparison game, which is likely to be unhelpful and is likely to be a lot more helpful to go, okay, so I'm gonna shit talk for a second. So there are some celebrities who have been typed who just don't resonate with me. Nothing. In particular, Byron Katie and Lauren Xander. They don't do it for me. I don't know. But they have almost no functions in common. They're both on the SINE axis. And I think they're both double feminine, but like, you know, one's got masculine TE, one's got feminine FE at the top. And I'm like, there's no like type correlation there. They're just people who don't resonate with me. Conversely, there are lots of lead masculine TE FM people who I totally dig, who are very similar to Lauren Xander and very similar to Byron Katie. You know, Jessica McCabe. I adore Jessica McCabe. She is delightful and adorable. So it's not, you can't, I think that the language that we often use to talk about OP makes it very, very easy. Not a foregone conclusion, but it certainly greases the wheels to making judgments that don't actually serve us. So I'll leave you with that. My whole thing and sort of what I want to do with this channel moving forward, the only thing I care about is becoming the most wise, generous, compassionate, connected, grounded person that I can be, live the richest life that I can, and hopefully give all of you out there tools and strategies and just energy to help you do the same. That's all I am interested in. I don't care about functions. I don't care what functions you have. I don't care about anything. This channel is still going to be about OP because it's an OP channel and I like OP. But I think that it's really important as we are talking about OP and as OP has become more codified, I think it's really important to look at how we are talking about the different facets of OP and to be really, really cognizant of, oh, this really serves me, this doesn't serve me, I'm going to steer towards this. And listen, in a pinch, if I need some chickpea pasta, if I just didn't roast the vegetables, I don't have time, I got to do whatever, have the chickpea pasta. You know, again, I would still caution against calling yourself or anybody else like a skib or a mope or a douchebag or a crackhead, because that's not very nice. But, you know, for the other stuff, just start to be mindful of the ways in which it serves you and the ways in which it doesn't. All right, that's all I got for today. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. As always, I love you. I see you. Now let's do the damn thing.